Trungpa Roshi, he used to have this great quip where he would say the only trouble with Zen and psychotherapy is that they don't work.
Yeah, I think it's really unhelpful to tell people they're whole when they don't feel whole. Where I would start is, what is their direct experience of not feeling whole? Completely opening up the field so that lack of sense of wholeness is completely allowed. And when we allow it like that, that is a wholeness view. That brokenness is included in a larger view.
And the trouble was, there was still a lot that actually needed to be addressed in my upbringing, in my self-awareness, in my shadows, in my selfishness, in the ways that I could behave and hurt people that were, all driven by, in some ways, the way I was conditioned growing up. And it's not enough. It's not enough to just wake up. Welcome, everybody, to Integral Edge. My name is Keith Martin Smith, and I am the author most recently of When the Buddha Needs Therapy. And I'm very excited today because I have my friend and colleague is here, Chad Bennett. And Chad is a Zen priest. We actually trained under the same lineage for quite a few years. And he's a former psychotherapist, and very curious to talk to you about why that former is there. And he's the founder of Mitra, which is a practice community centered on spiritual friendship and transformative companionship. And Chad spent really most of his adult life exploring the living intersection of awakening, development, and healing. And so for those of you that are familiar with the integral sort of buzzwords around this, waking up, growing up, and cleaning up, one of Chad's real insights is that these things need to be practiced as a singular practice rather than three things that we're trying to do separately. And so with that said, welcome, Chad.
Thanks. Appreciate being here, and congratulations to your writing successes there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So maybe like we could just start off with, I'll just hand it over to you and you can sort of take us wherever you would like to go here initially.
Great. One thing that would be really helpful to me right now is to know how many people are on the call. It doesn't mean they have to be here in a particular way, but there are 5 people on the call, plus you and me. Mm-hmm. So there's 7 people on the call. And I just wanted to invite us to feel into that, in a sense that there's a difference between a podcast with a dialogue back and forth of 2 people who are in my case, on the screen, I only see 2 of us. But the sense of, one thing Mitra is more of a collective field. So there's a sense of just inviting everybody into the call in that way, not in a sense that anyone needs to participate if they don't like, but that there is a difference. I experience it horizontally from the heart of speaking to a field rather than talking about a Mitra or a particular system. So I just want to invite that in as a kind of way, say. Mitra, you can say, is a way.
Yeah, maybe we could say if people feel compelled at any point, usually we save questions and calls for the end, but maybe we could just say if anybody feels compelled during this, for those of you that are watching, you can call in on the bottom of your screen. It can be a little glitchy because you need to use Chrome or whatever the Microsoft browser is for it to work properly, but you can use the chat function as well. So please feel free to participate in this call.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Please interrupt.
Yeah.
I'll start with just saying a few things about Mitra, and then I'd really like to move into a practice together that everyone's invited to do. Mitra came out of a sort of quiet protest from me of the sort of insatiable Western instinct to make everything into objects and then pathologize them. And those objects tend to be ourselves more than anything. So I found, in answer to what you might have been alluding to, why former psychotherapists, there's just felt sense that no matter how hard I tried, people were approaching me with a certain fix-it point of view with the title psychotherapist, which isn't to say that many psychotherapists are exiting the pathology model and doing really good work. So it just, for me, it was becoming increasingly less comfortable. So it's sort of a way to look from wholeness rather than brokenness as a starting point. And then the second thing I would say about it is it does come from my own frustration, the lifelong, or not lifelong, but at least since being introduced to Integral, going on 20 years now, that I was always really unsatisfied with myself, probably pathologizing myself at times, but I was always unsatisfied with my limits or the limits of models that seem to really privilege awakening or really privilege development or really privilege healing, like the psychotherapy or the shamanism or the integration side of things.
Waking up, growing up, cleaning up.
Waking, growing up, cleaning up. So my mind was always frustrated by, it was like my cognition was trying to bring these things together over many years and sort of failed attempts over and over again and feeling dissatisfied. But that dissatisfaction is really, I think, a major part of my own unfoldment. That I hope, I say this often, but I hope people all are frustrated by a certain question, because if you follow that question, kind of a soul's purpose, if you like, then, it tends to develop us in some direction, whether we succeed or fail not being the matter. So Mitra comes out of that, and we can get into kind of the details of the practices a little bit more, but that's the view, if you like.
Okay, I like that. I mean, it reminds me, of Junpo, my teacher, Junpo Roshi. He used to have this great quip where he would say the only trouble with Zen and psychotherapy is that they don't work.
Yeah, that's a simple way of looking at my mind for the last 15 years,
And he meant it quite literally in the sense of unless they were combined.
That's right.
Right? Like, if you're trying to find liberation through therapy, you're never going to find it. And if you're trying to get fixed through awakening, you're never going to find it. And so there's a way of like, we need to do enough work so that we're not in our own way. But when we, at places like Boulder and the Bay and New York City, right, people can become sort of obsessed with their trauma and use it as a boogeyman to sort of explain away all the things that are wrong in their lives, rather than, to your point, looking for the innate wholeness that's already here. So maybe that's a good place to start, this innate wholeness, because certainly I've had times in my life when I was younger, panic attacks, raging anxiety. If you had told me like, Keith, you're whole, I would have just probably first laughed, then cried, then run away.
Yeah, no, me too. I think it's really unhelpful to tell people they're whole when they don't feel whole. Where I would start is, what is their direct experience of not feeling whole, completely opening up the field so that lack of sense of wholeness is completely allowed. And when we allow it like that, that is a wholeness view. That brokenness is included in a larger view. But I was still hoping we could do a little practice to kind of, this practice will maybe seem new to some people. It really will highlight at least the inquiry method, or one of the inquiry methods that I use a lot in Mitra as the central practice, say. There are a lot of practices that come through Mitra, including meditation, including just full-on cleanup at times. But the central practice is inquiry. And I just wanted to give a little flavor of that and see if, again, open that field to those people who are here. And this recording does transcend time and space. So if you're listening to it in an hour or whatever, you can do the practice as well if you like. But I really like to, this kind of goes along with, I really like to get down to what something is experientially more than talking about it. Because even talking about it as a third person perspective tends to lend itself to what I was talking about earlier, which is we just get the map.
Separation.
Yeah. So this is just an experiment. It's something fun to try, and it'll give you a taste of how I see things. And so we can just begin by finding a posture that's equally upright and alert, and relaxed. Find that middle way, whether your spine is unsupported or supported. It's just equal parts relaxed and alert, engaged, here, interested perhaps in what might happen, what might unfold next. We don't know. And I'd recommend closing the eyes for this. This will have a visualization um, component. And start by just taking a few deep breaths, with each exhale moving deeper into your own experience, into your own body on the exhale. Breathing in freshness into the belly. And as we breathe out, dropping awareness down into the body deeper with each exhale. We'll have two parts to the meditation. The first one will be, what might be called an emptiness style of meditation, in the Buddhist tradition at least. And just invite you to drop your awareness or your own attention to where the base of the body meets the earth. Really lock your attention onto that. Doesn't mean that thoughts can't happen or sensations aren't happening, but we're gently insisting on staying at that line where the body and the earth meet. Letting the body rest a little bit here. And now just assume this is possible. Just drop your attention below the body into the earth, the solidity below. Feel the earth, feeling awareness of the earth element, the density, the stability, the support, the vast slab of darkness. If you find that you're efforting too much to keep the attention below the earth, just flip the efforting. This earth is trying to feel me. This earth is trying to feel me, which may tend to dissolve the boundary between the body and the earth. If there is a boundary between the body and the earth, you can use your attention to investigate, what is this boundary? Is there actually something there? Put your attention into the boundary and you'll see that it really doesn't hold up as substantial. We could say one field of feeling awareness as earth body. See if there's any part of the body that might relax a little bit more into the earth. Now, part two is more of a visualization. It's not an emptiness view so much, it's an unfoldment view. So what I'd like you to do is think of your body sitting upright as now, with the entire past of the universe behind you. You could even visually draw a line back 13.8 billion years. to the event of the universe coming into form. Just go all the way, all the way, all the way back. You don't have to get it perfectly right. We're just saying way, way, way back there. There's the beginning. And then out in the front is the vast space of the future. We don't necessarily need to draw a line here as much as experience ourselves as sitting now with the vast sense of future or possibility ahead. We don't know, it's not formed yet from this point of view. So going back to the Big Bang, we have the explosion of energy into matter, it sounds like. This is 14 billion years ago, and just a lot of energy moving into matter. And we're just coming a little closer to the back of the body as we move towards, very quickly, even 10 billion years, to find our solar system, which just formed 5 billion years ago. So we're already 2/3 of the way towards the back. And then somehow Earth, an organization of a solar system, and then simple life forms in the water, sounds like. More complex life forms. The dinosaurs were here for 130 million years, and they were extinct about 240 million years ago. So now we're really close into the back, and haven't even been a whisper of a thought in terms of what humans are. Now just a myriad of life forms, reptiles, mammals, eventually humans. First imprints of what could even be called human about 2 million years ago. And then we have, very quickly, generations and generations of people and cultures, and we have your parents. And we have you. Just getting a sense now that you are very now, but the past is always behind us. So even before this meditation, before maybe trying this, if you haven't before, you were a completely different now. You maybe have experienced yourself completely differently than you do now with the information I'm giving you. So we're constantly updating. We're informed by our past, but we're being pressed at every moment into the future. So the now on this line is always moving forward, you could say. We're always moving forward, informed by the past, but what Whitehead called the creative advance into novelty, something new and fresh coming in all the time. And that we're more of a process than a noun. See if you might experience yourself as a process, an unfoldment, always moving forward into the unknown future, rather than a fixed identity, a fixed noun. I am this way, I will always be this way. It's almost like being on a road trip in the great American West, where we don't really have a destination, but we're going 75 miles an hour into the future. Curious excitement of what might be around the next corner. Or surfing the front edge of a wave of now. We're curious, we're interested, we're delighted in what might unfold. It's not just that unfoldment is happening, which it always is, but we are poised and interested about what we are becoming, not just who we were or who we're being. So in a moment, Keith and I are going to open our eyes and connect from this view. And I welcome anyone who is watching to also be a part of the connecting as a collective in this view of very much now. Yes, we have history, but we don't know what's going to happen next. And we're super curious about what might unfold here. So when you're ready, we can open eyes and we'll connect. And then Keith, what's it like to be here now together?
It has a steady, unrushed obviousness to it.
Beautiful. I'm getting a little mic feedback. Okay. When I talked, I could hear myself good. Yeah. For me, there's a sense of real curiosity about what we might talk about. There's no script at the moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also an emptiness available. There's also that the now is so now that there is a kind of blank slate as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that sense that everything is sort of here, everything in the personal is sort of available and arising there. So
Beautiful.
all the stuff in the body, I can lean into I'm actually doing a podcast and to not go too, that's arising also.
Yeah.
Not caring about that is arising as well.
Great.
Yeah, and just I think an ease in letting the moment just be full in and of itself without much of a narration on top of it.
Beautiful. And, obviously we'll need to narrate together as it is a podcast, but I wanted to click on to something you said there, which was the personal was available.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm really interested in. Mitra does include the personal. And I think if we go too far out into the waking up side, at least for me, I had a view that was overly transcendent for a long time. And it was a overly transcendent with an inner critic.
Yeah.
So I was never transcendent enough and I was always doing it wrong. And what I found really helpful, and if I had heard this again, if I heard this over and over again, ease up, be gentle with yourself. I just couldn't hear it at the time, but it turns out if there's one thing my teachers were right about, that was it. That I found that befriending experience is a way to relax all experience, and it is seen as empty. So
Yeah.
it sort of meets the criteria of a Buddhist. My Buddhist colleagues, you could say, that there's holding emptiness, holding a view, which I think is great. I still do it. I still do a lot of meditation practice. But then there's also being with experience to the degree that when it's investigated, it is seen as empty, but also full. It has a richness. There's a richness in life that I think, I was missing out on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded here just of so just so the audience knows, you and I have been doing this sort of unusual practice together, a couple times a month. And we've only done it, 3, 4 times?
Yeah, four or
right?
five times. Yeah.
4 or 5 times. And there's no script, there's no
Right.
lineage that we're practicing, there's no real map. Um, what we're doing is one person sort of leads and the other person sort of follows. But what we do is we speak to what's arising in the moment, either somatically, relationally, spiritually, right? Like whatever the thread is, sort of like it gets spoken into it, which is a novelty for me, doing a practice and actually giving voice to what's here. And
Right.
it's led me to sort of some of these profound integrated arisings where it's like, I mean, trauma is certainly here when we're doing it. You know, as you know, the tears will flow, and you know, a persona or a protector will come up, and it's very easy to shift into and give voice to that, and then just let it go. And so it's like therapy without therapy. It's like awakening without any of the baggage that's associated with that sort of terrible word, which gets so, you
Yeah.
know, clogged with projection.
Yeah.
And that's what I see you're sort of pointing to in this practice is sort of getting into the immediacy of what's actually here,
Yes.
which
Definitely.
which includes everything. It includes the
Yeah.
tie back 14 or whatever billion years and the infinity in front, the ever present now that's here, but also all of the other stuff, right, that makes us human. There's nothing to get away from. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah. I think
Awake.
for me that was the biggest shift. I mean, there's the awakening side of things, which I would call big shifts, or yeah, I don't want to underplay the importance of like Kensho or having awakening experiences because it does set up a transformation in process that's like very hard to measure in value, you know? So I don't want to minimize that, but um, yeah, I'm championing much more of an inquiry method. Like if something's coming up, what are the attitudes needed from wholeness that help that thing, you could say. In this case, maybe we're talking about a contraction or if you like a trauma.
Mhm.
But if we're holding it from wholeness, which is I'm curious, I'm open, I'm Mitra means friendship, you know, it's I'm trying to befriend my experience.
Right.
Then wholeness kind of knows what to do and how to address that thing, like it's the ideal parent, you know,
Right. Right.
those things. And as we include these things, I guess if we want to, I'm scared to use language right now because there's like parts work is very popular right now, and it's a very, very effective method of healing and integration. And I see the only thing I don't like to do is reify parts that because if we think we're all always in parts, we're always going to be looking for parts.
Parts is just another concept.
It's another
It's
concept, but
another dualistic notion. Right? And yet it's helpful.
and
Just
it's
like
helpful.
knowing
And
I'm
it's
Keith is
helpful.
helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful. I don't like to reify parts. If parts are arising and someone says, I have this part, I honor that that's their experience. It's a part. As we investigate parts, say, optimally and relate with them from wholeness, they tend to soften or transmute or change, you know, in some way. Once they're back in the river of flow, you know, parts are just frozen little nodes of consciousness.
Mhm.
Once they're back in the river and flowing,
Gracious. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about parts anymore. I want to follow that person's journey. But the one thing that can happen with parts that has been very, very surprising to me is that parts themselves can eventually see that they are the wholeness, that it's the same wholeness. And this is a more, maybe moving towards a more non-dual experience. But the part itself that, you know, just wanted rest has the wisdom, say, of deep, deep rest and it hasn't been allowed to because of all our fixing and protectors and all the kind of mess of parts. So I really like to not reify parts, but I really am interested more and more in how all of these parts have an aspect of the jewel of the whole. They know something really deeply. So it's not about healing or getting rid of parts anymore. It's about ultimately letting that part express its awakened wisdom to the whole, as the whole. It's quite a different approach.
So I think there's some important discernments that I want to highlight here that are implied but haven't been stated. So one is that you're talking about including but not indulging, and there's actually a really important difference here.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, because like this isn't like a green meme like, hey, everything's part of the whole, bring all your narcissistic bullshit, bring your bullshit projection, it's all good. You're the divine feminine. I'll say it's not that at all, because it presumes the capacity to go under those narrower, more egocentric and less whole perspectives, right?
It does presume that, and if people are not able to slide under those, particular perspectives, those are honored as their own experience as well. Those will empty out as well if they're given another way to say it is the appropriate amount of space and the appropriate amount of direct investigation and intention. That's a big balancing act in inquiry itself. How much to allow the energy of whatever that is to take up all the space in the universe, and how much to zero in on it, investigate what is its actual nature.
Right.
Always balancing those two skill sets.
Right. Yeah, I'm reminded, I think it was Rajneesh, I think was the one that did this practice. I think where they would invite new people into their Sangha, well, their cult really, but they would do a practice where they would have people speak for 3 days, just tell me everything about you. They would have someone sit and just, tell me more, and eventually the person would just get exhausted with their story and just totally worn out by it. And that would often lead to some sort of a kensho where it's like 3 days of talking about yourself. Right. It's like I don't want to say anything more. And then what happens? I'm not any of those stories.
Right. I'm not any of those stories.
Part of the process. And I think the discernment, because Rajneesh was really a transcendent bypassing path, in my opinion. And so what I see you offering is, yes, do something like that. See the emptiness in the parts, but also see the fullness. Don't just throw them away as not awake. Because that leads to not only spiritual bypassing, but spiritual narcissism and all sorts of other problems, right?
Yeah, and I think nihilism, it's just the error could be for some people, it has been for me, is an over-privileging of emptiness on this side and not investigating, the out-there-ness and eventually integrating them. So yeah, it can just be an over-privileging of emptiness. Now, a lot of people underprivilege emptiness to such a degree that then you're looking at maybe just being in a pattern of really needing to heal everything, and there's no you could say less access to view, So there's problems on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, I think far more people that I encounter, the struggle is having never had a genuine kensho.
Yeah.
If you've never actually been in that place where, the relative small self has been sort of blown out of existence and there's just this sort of viewless view or whatever kind of mystical experience beyond self, but there's definitely no small self there anymore. Without that experience, it's just a head game.
Yeah.
It's like, I never understood Christianity. I was raised Catholic. I never understood the idea of Jesus Christ. I never understood the idea of a God. It just never made any sense to me at all. And I was in my 20s, my maybe mid-20s at a church in Philly. A buddy was getting married, and there was this beautiful statue, a life-size statue of Christ on a cross that rather than being way up on the ceiling was down low. And I was looking at the statue, and I was just thinking, like what an extraordinary man this guy must have been. You know, like, I mean, what, like, you forget all of the bullshit, you know, with all of the divinity and all that, but just like, you know, I'm so curious what he was like and what he was teaching and what he was about. And then like that, snap, I had this, my whole heart filled up, and like, and I had this experience of what I could only say is divine love. It was like, you know, I'm 25, I'm in Philly, it's all these kind of like rough and tough people, you know, so I'm sort of fighting to keep tears from rolling down my eyes as I'm having this experience of Christos, of divine love, right? But until that moment, you could talk to me all you want about it, right? It's like, it was just like, well, that's just some bullshit philosophy that you're talking. And I would, in those years, even, you know, if someone had had the experience, having not had it myself, just dismissed it out of hand, of course, right? But so I think as practitioners, we always come back to this challenge, which is, without the experience, so this is Zen 101, right? It's like, without the experience, we have nothing to talk about. Go back to the Zendo.
Yeah.
Talk about enlightenment? Why? Just go sit. Sit until something happens, then we'll talk. Otherwise, it's just going to confuse you.
I know. It's so true. I forget how to do it. You know, I mean, I forget the, you know, basically what, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of weeks of retreat and all that. And I so value Zen, Zen especially in its, well, Rinzai Zen especially. You know, I'm not a warrior type person. I'm a lover, not a fighter, for sure. And for me to go through that kind of, you know, Rinzai training, it is good for that breakthrough. It really is good for that initial awakening, transformation experience. And it's good for doing it again and again. You know, that's what koan practice was, although we didn't particularly train. Oh, you are now training in that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I didn't particularly train in that specific. I sort of have had a few koan breakthroughs that way. But yeah, you know, as we talk, I can't underestimate my appreciation for toughing it out. I just think I could have done it a lot more non-aggressively, and yet this is what my teachers told me anyway, you know? So one thing I just want to say is that my idea of Mitra was always braiding, awakening, growing, and healing. It was an image in my mind. People would have these arguments, are states and stages, and, you know, are they distinct? Are they not? And I thought it was really good to comb out that braid at times and really make it distinct. Like, this is awakening practice. This I should do for therapy. That's a really helpful exercise. And that has informed, you know, Mitra. But the braid was always an image. It was like, oh, you know, let's bring them together and relax with this and let unfoldment happen a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, to me, so this is so relevant, right? Because, like, you know, I knew someone and was very close to them, and they were going through an experience where they're seeing a Naropa trained transpersonal therapist.
Yeah.
And this person was having experiences where they were having like pretty clear trauma, dissociative episodes that were egoic based and generated a lot of fear. They were also clearly having, in my opinion, sort of peak witnessing causal experiences where the self was falling away, and there was just the bliss, and also tears, but different tears.
Right.
And there was no self, but the sort of big witnessing self.
Yeah.
And they were also going through a pretty powerful transition from green into teal. And all these things were happening at once. So those are three very distinct braids, right?
Yeah, that's tough.
The therapist, who was trained in transpersonal psychology, doing the best they could, but she reduced everything to trauma, right? And fortunately, I was able to say, like, I think more is going on here, and then send this person your way, and then you were able, using this method, to let's pull those braids apart.
Yeah, let's pull them apart. That's right. At
right? Because
times
it's
we
like,
need
what's needed here? Oh, okay. Well,
what's needed here.
maybe
Yeah.
this week we really need to just get into the trauma stuff and just sink our teeth into the relative and be messy and project
Right.
and do all this stuff, right? But maybe the next
Right.
week it's well, let's talk about what's your developmental edge? What are you seeing? What's up when it comes to
Right.
like when you're at the peeking over the top of the fence as far as what you're able to track both in yourself and out in the world. And then another thread, of course, is like, tell me what it's like when there's no you.
That's right. And, stabilizing a little bit more in a boundless sort of timeless view can really help integrate trauma. It often will move into confusing that with dissociation, and that's a big deal. I spent 2 years on the cushion figuring that out. But holding the view and letting if you want to say trauma or the sensation level of the body take up more and more space is one way to move it. I mean, it's the ultimate resource. Knowing, if you want to talk about trauma as a part, that part knowing it's being held in wholeness. Wow, that changes everything. Rather than
Well, right, because
fixing
that's the
it.
illusion of the part, right? The the human psyche operates in such a way that the parts feel sort of existentially isolated from the whole. That's why they're parts, right?
Exactly.
And
That's
otherwise, they
exactly
kind of
what
wouldn't
parts.
exist.
That's right. A lot of the work we do I think should be doing with parts work is both relating to them from wholeness and seeing if that part can see wholeness, getting down to the level. That's a big skill, is getting down to the level of the part, but also letting parts talk with parts, because parts do experience them as silos, and they have a whole universe inside. A
Yeah.
part has a whole like belief of what's happening to it. That's sort of frozen block of ice in the river, but it's a whole universe that needs sort of integration into a larger system.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, and again, this work, what I'm really getting is it's tricky because part of the skillfulness in what you're employing on your end is actually doing a pretty sophisticated assessment. I mean, you're sort of having to do a little bit of a trauma assessment, sort of what's going on in the relative self. You're having to do a developmental assessment, like what is this person, how are they actually making meaning in the world? What is the lens through which they view, which is
Right.
hugely relevant. And then what is their spiritual capacity? Where are they in relationship to the arc of awakening as we sort of roughly understand it? So you're doing those three things, and then you're
Yeah.
actually seeing how those three things are interacting. And then
Yeah.
what you're saying is the practice that you're doing is you stand sort of shoulder to shoulder and show up where the person needs you to show up.
Totally.
Okay.
I totally do. I mean, what you're saying is going on in my mind all the time.
Yeah.
It's also probably intuitive at this
Sure.
sense. Like when I'm inquiring with people, I am at the front edge of now with them in unknowing. I don't know what's going to happen next. And I truly stay as much as possible. That I'll have thoughts and I'll have feelings. I'll be like, wow, I feel what they're feeling. I can sort of feel like, whoa, there's something big here or whatever. But mainly I'm honestly, genuinely staying out of the way as much as possible. And the actual unfoldment
Yeah.
is the assessment. So if someone is not able to stay in the present moment at all and unable to take an unfoldment view, they might need like actual like psychotherapy for a specific thing, like trauma work. Mitra will hold trauma as an unfoldment, but it won't hold it as if you need real skills to resource and move towards that thing and melt it slowly and all that. That's not so much inquiry. That is more of a trauma modality. And I would suggest somatic experiencing as being very akin to inquiry. You're getting into the somatic
What's
field.
here now?
What's here now. The other thing inquiry isn't, or Mitra isn't, in my opinion, it's not really, it's not reparenting. It is side by side walking into the unknown together. So if real relational reparenting is needed, attachment work or, long term, that isn't quite what I'm, focusing on right now either. So that there's a little bit of a distinction. And yet, all of experience, all of a person's experience, I trust, is an unfoldment. And therefore, meeting them where they are, it's like sometimes this is why I settled on inquiry. It's because sometimes you're having a peak state experience. The next moment, you're plunged down into like your darkest this or that. The next, you're having a different worldview and a grow up thing. So, it the reason why the braid kind of comes to mind is because that's how life unfolds. You know, it's closer to life than sort of I am doing emptiness practice or I am doing psychotherapy and setting aside an hour for this and an hour for that. Really, it seems to be an unfoldment of this whole mess.
Yeah.
And yeah, having the distinctions is helpful, but also relaxing and trusting that we are actually going somewhere great if we'll just get out of the way. Please, if we'll just get out of the way, we're headed. It seems to work.
Yeah. So I've got a couple things here. So
Yeah.
first, in most therapeutic modalities, and certainly in spiritual modalities, and you know, I teach martial arts. Certainly in martial arts modalities, there is, even if it's not overtly stated, there is usually an intelligence and a method for dealing with the projection of the student.
Yeah.
Because it's always here, right? It's
Right.
like what makes practice between you and I so unique, I think, is that because we're peers, we're both priests, you know, and so it's like, you know, I'm not your teacher, you're not my teacher. We're basically the same age. We're from the same part of the country.
That's right.
So it's like I'm not looking to impress you. You're not looking to impress me. You know,
Right.
I'm not looking to teach
Right.
you. You're not looking to teach me. So like we accidentally kind of blew up the projection model, you know, just by virtue of the way it worked. But I know as a teacher, I have to be I can never be cavalier and be like, well, I'm just, you know, I'll just manage the projection somehow. It's like you really have to be conscious of it. And so I'm curious how you work with that in the Mitra model.
Great. I love the question. There's a lot of unknown in what I'm going to say here. But first, I would say I appreciate our relationship too. And I recognize, so Mitra comes out of the Buddhist notion of Kalyana Mitra, which means spiritual friend, it actually. And my teachers in India, my original teachers, were definitely that. There was a hierarchy because they knew a hell of a lot more than I did. But they just met me on a certain level where I just felt, you know, yeah, it felt like sort of uncle auntie friendship sort of thing. Yeah. So that's sort of the view. But I wanted to just point to something specific about you and I, which is I've written about this on Substack with fairly extensively, what I call self-healing, self-awakening systems. It's a stage of development where you're pretty much moment to moment rolling with this. Like I'm inquiring all the time or stabilizing a view all the time. It's sort of what I'm doing as my life, right? And you are too. So there's no need for one another to be something of a projection screen. And these are rare friendships, Keith. These are true Kalyana Mitra. And I hope you're finding others too. I am. It's sort of like, wow, there is a new culture that could be born here where, you know, we're awake enough, grown up enough, healed enough, still clumsy.
Integral enough, really, too. Yeah.
And integral enough, I guess, if you like, I think Keith Witt, I liked his notion of post-issue relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think he's talking about, you know, but to answer your pairs, you know, he's talking about pairs. But I mean this sort of all around globally, that when you can be post-issue when you're actually available. I'm very available to you. You're available to me. We're available to unfoldment, and there's just a joy in not being so like clumsily intertwined and projecting onto each other. With students, I haven't tended to directly address transference or projection that much. I feel it all the time. I haven't gotten into a lot of trouble with that, but I've also avoided like leading a big community. I did lead a Zen group for a couple of years, and it all went fine. I know it's happening. I know I was doing it to people, but I feel like just if I can just befriend what's arising, then it's a good model. It's not, I'm not saying, I'm going to be your best friend or I'm here to fix you. I'm just befriending your experience. It tends to clear out a lot of that idea that I'm going to be dad or mom. I think I've moved from dad, mom, which is psychotherapy, a little bit more, into aunt, uncle. Someone said I felt like an uncle now,
Got it. Got
and
it.
I was like, huh,
And yet when
and
you and I practice, it's to me, it's brothers,
yeah, yeah. That, like I would treat everyone not as best I can. I mean, I'm still working on it, but I would treat everyone in a way. I would assume everyone has the capacity to become their own self-healing, self-awakening system, and I treat them accordingly. So I have that view in mind that they have all the capacities to do this. They just don't know it yet. So it's the same as a part. It's like treating someone like a part. It's like their wholeness, but they don't quite know it yet. So we'll just play the game until they realize it.
Yeah, I think maybe that's well said. You play the game, so the self-healing, self-awakening, the irony, of course, is that some people, you're 25 years old, you're 27 years old, you might get fixated on that as the thing that you're going to now strive for,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no getting out of the sort of paradox because part of what we're doing, we're both here, we're in our 50s, we've practiced for decades, we've trained our minds, like done a ton of psychotherapy, like not to toot our horns, but it's like this is, in some ways, this is the fruits of a tremendous amount of disciplined, difficult work. It's not like, hey, we just decided we'll sit shoulder to shoulder and I've read a couple books and you've read a couple books. And so let's just, right? Because I just want to caution people that you have to be careful about the blind leading the blind as well. And I want to be careful not to pathologize anything because things could come out of that. But there's to me, what you're speaking from is a lifetime of devoted practice. And I don't want to just dismiss that because it's really vital.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I think it's true. I don't know. I used to backcountry ski, and a friend of mine, I was not good at backcountry skiing. It took me a long time to my friend said, you want to look good, you got to look bad. And I said, it stuck with me. It kind of stuck with me.
That's a great quote. I love that. Oh, I'm going to steal that.
Right. I talk about, I also wrote an article on, I have a philosophy called the right kind of hard, the right kind of hard. And the right kind of hard is defined as the optimal earnestness to know the truth of your experience. And optimal is a key word because you can overdo it and be self-aggressive, and you can underdo it and be kind of lazy or whatever you like. And I do make a point that in terms of spiritual development, most people actually don't try hard enough. That
That's
is
what I
a
was alluding
position.
to earlier. It's like I think there's less
Yeah,
genuine experience of Kensho than you and I might project onto the world.
yeah. Most people, some people over do. I'm one of those people, but I think it's rarer than the. Yeah, and what, but there is a way that we could, like the anti-fragility view of what you do, like I would say, do hard things that are meaningful to you. The wrong kind of hard is doing, just having a hard life and doing hard things that are useless.
Breaking metaphorical rocks, for the sake of breaking rocks,
Exactly. But the optimal kind of hard, the optimal sort of difficulty, going to the gym and feeling better about yourself over time and then releasing the self over time, it generally just doesn't happen. I mean, there are great teachers where just awakening has happened and they're transmitting beautifully. I don't know that they would have been that helpful to me, though, because
no, because again, without the integration,
it's been gritty, and it's like it's been hard. We've over the years met, and it's just like, okay, yeah.
And it's not enough. I mean, I've had Kenshos so powerful, for months living completely undivided, just the self just arising in perfection, just sitting in a chair and staring at the wall rather than watching something or reading, because there was no need to do anything, but just,
Yeah.
I would just wait. The next meeting would come up and I'd walk over to my computer and sit down. And, and it was like, oh,
It relaxes
this
you.
is awakening, right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Why did it collapse? Why did it crumble so catastrophically?
Right.
Because it wasn't integrated, right? It was like there actually, from that place, there was so little of me left. And I could go about my life. I was in a relationship, I would go to my men's group, I was able to function, but
Yeah.
but the Keithness was so cool in the sense of not hot and so far away. There's
Yeah.
no need to do any work. There's no need to fix anything. And the trouble was, there was still a lot that actually needed to be addressed in my upbringing, in my self-awareness, in my shadows, in my selfishness, in the ways that I could behave and hurt people that were, all driven by, in some ways, the way I was conditioned growing up. And those things weren't touched by this deep awakened self. They just existed along with everything else.
That's right.
So this is the problem when you work with just an awakened teacher, right? It's like, it's not enough. It's not enough to just wake up. I mean, if you're like an Adishanti and apparently you have pretty good karma and you're like a gentle, not very sexual guy, and like, as far as I know, he hasn't made any messes and he hasn't really done any shadow work. And hats off to him, right? But like,
Yeah.
I needed and continue to need to do shadow work in this process,
That ain't me. Yeah. And one thing that I just caught on there was, which we haven't really talked about, was the showing up aspect, which is that, the idea, post awakening, is the beginning of, this is a Buddhist view, but there's an awakening and then there's this whole ladder of, bodhisattva training, which is increasingly not practicing for yourself, but for others. And you were talking about like there's the emptiness and then like a cold Keithness or like almost a preventing of the self coming back online in some way. Like it almost can prevent self unfoldment in a way.
Yeah.
That self unfoldment is the bodhisattva at that level.
That's right.
That is the thing and the vehicle that you bring your work into the world that, hopefully serves. And I think that's an important aspect of Mitra eventually as well.
It's the great, Mahayana and Vajrayana path, right? It's not for me, but for all beings, right? And it's like, and that's done as what would we say, is sort of an amber rule-based, thing you have to do when people are practicing. But the intention as we grow up and wake up, through all of this, is that you begin to see that because there is no separation between me and anything else, because that is ultimately an illusion, saying that I will practice until everyone awakens, it's not even a vow. It's just the obvious truth, right? It's like, it's not like I have to get weepy and, it's like, well, as opposed to what?
Right? That's right.
The self is completely a construct. So it's like, what am I going to? The I is a construct. So there is no getting off the wheel, right? There is no fucking wheel, right? The only liberation is just seeing that you're forever on the wheel with everything else, that it is the wheel, right? And that heaven is here, as Van Halen said.
Yeah, I love that. I really felt the wholeness coming through you when you said that. Like I really felt that wholeness.
Okay, so a couple more points here. So, again, we're sort of double clicking on this idea of people might get obsessed with the self-healing, self-awakening thing, and that I think.
Yeah, good point. I appreciate you.
Part of it is like you got to go slow, right? Like I had an experience 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. I was dating a woman. We were getting very close. I was driving back to this place, which I just bought. And we had a bad fight. And I was thinking to myself, the story of mine was going like, you don't need her. Like, you don't fucking need her, man. Like, you don't need her. Like, you're making good money now. You just bought your own place. Like, you don't need her. You don't need this shit. And that and me were the same. It was, Keith was having these thoughts. But then that voice went a little further and it said, you don't need anybody.
Mm.
And when I heard that, suddenly that voice, which had always been a part of me, just fused with me. It suddenly, boom, it popped over, and I was like, well, that's not true. I do need people. And
Wow.
suddenly there was a subject-object split, and I was able to see for the first time that, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a traumatized, split-off self that
Yeah.
only feels safe when he's alone. And it was like,
Wow.
I'll never forget driving, right? It was like,
Yeah.
because it was like, it was almost hallucinogenic. And I had a vision of a spoon in the, like an actual vision of a spoon in the passenger seat. And I called my brother and I was like, did mom used to hit us with a wooden spoon? And he was like, oh yeah, man, that was like part of growing up. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
I have no memory of that, right? It just popped in. So I say all that because like, there's no rushing any of these processes because there's nowhere to go.
Right. That's right. And yeah, it's a tricky one. The nowhere to go is an insight, right? That a hard won insight. And yeah, prior to that, there feels like there is somewhere to go. And I even encourage people, if you're really driven to do this, like
I mean, what were we
go.
doing on the cushion all those years? We were trying to get to
Yeah,
it.
like go.
And
Like
then
I would,
I
I
got
would
it.
say
And it was like,
go
it went
for
away.
it.
It's like, oh, how do I get it back? You know,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, right?
But ultimately, that does soften, and that that driver or that sometimes it's a spiritual ego, you know. But it's good to admit you have it and use it, I would say, as a vehicle. Like, okay, no, I really do feel like I need to make progress. And I would obsess with that. And I think that's softened a lot. I can't even say when or how, but it does soften over time that there's a sense of resting into being and letting things happen increasingly, you know.
Well, it's funny, you know. I think especially in spiritual circles, we rediscover all the time, you know. Because I'm just popped into my head Suzuki Roshi. I think it was Suzuki that said, "You're perfect in every way, and you can use a little work."
Right.
And if that isn't pointing to this, right? Like,
That's right. That's
I'm
the whole
sure
thing.
he knew this in his own way. I don't have any doubt, you know.
Yeah, that's a whole teaching, actually.
That's a whole. I mean, that sentence
That's
is
a
a whole
whole
teaching.
teaching. Yeah, that's an integral teaching, I would say.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one last question here is sort of
Yeah.
the time, but like, so you're doing this work. You've pivoted you're
Yeah.
out of your sort of former professional life, and now you're
Yeah.
just doing what I would say is a more integrated life calling.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do you, like, how do you work with people in the sense of like, what if it was a 19-year-old? What if it was a 40-year-old with a lot of trauma, but real clear spiritual insight? What if it was, all these, we've talked about all these things, right? And like
Yeah.
people who show up on your metaphorical door, I mean, they can be anywhere. So
Oh, yeah.
how do you open, what do you open the door to?
Great. Well, they could be anywhere, but they don't seem to be.
Okay.
They seem to be attracted to what I'm doing for whatever reason. I think I'm sort of casting out if you look at my website, it doesn't actually say exactly what I do, right? Almost like this conversation. It's not saying this is exactly, I refused to point to pathology on the website. Like, you need this, or I can help you do that. I make no promises, I honestly make no promises. Like I said, I think my main line is, are they able to ground enough to stay present with me in a consultation? Are they interested? Do they come from a place of interest in inquiry, curiosity? Are they a curious person? I still haven't figured out how to teach curiosity. It's
I
like,
don't know if you can.
yeah, it's
It's like self-awareness. You kind of got it or you don't.
yeah. I mean, you can practice awareness, right? But you can't really. Yeah. Anyway, that's been a thing. And are they curious? And also, yeah, if there's going to be a lot of initial like reparenting work, like I said, I tend to refer them to people who are more like would call themselves psychotherapists and want to do that more longer term work. I work with people one on one in this unfoldment, and then the main thing I'm been really interested in the last 6 months is taking my what were groups, inquiry groups. They were called What's Happening Now, and that's what was developing as the psychotherapy was collapsing. I was kind of like, what is this kind of new thing evolving? And now I work with triads, 3 people and me, sometimes 4, but I like these very small groups where we do inquiry practice together. We meet a couple times a month, and then we also have a WhatsApp group between us so that the Mitra befriending aspect can happen between all of us, between sessions. So there's a little bit more sense of just kind of being better to each other. I mean, in some way, Mitra came out of an idea that, like, in the modern world that's collapsing right now, I talk to people all the time, all year, what is a friend? And many really well-adjusted people can't answer the question or don't know if they actually have one.
Wow, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's like, what is a friend? It's like, well, it's like, do I have a friend? And I also have another Substack article about that, I think, coming out Friday, like moving from friendship to befriending, the noun, object, you're my friend, therefore this, versus befriending, which is a process, it's an unfoldment, it's a view that we can move with kindness towards one another and help each other out a little bit more in this like desert of sort of objectification that seems to be collapsing right now collectively. So it's little pods, triads I call them, and not so interested in developing a community around this at the time. I just don't seem to be cut from that cloth,
Well, it's also perilous, I mean, I interviewed John Churchill, a few years back when he was beginning to form, I forget what it's called now. I'm drawing a blank.
Planetary Dharma.
Planetary Dharma.
Yeah.
A spiritual community. And, I said something like, good luck, man. It's like, you want to sit in that chair? Like that's not a chair that I want to sit in. Like, talk about projection,
Yeah.
But I'm going to be talking to him in 5 days, which is really exciting. So I'm actually
That's
after
beautiful.
3 years or something. So like,
I'm following his work.
But like, we'll be,
He seems to be holding it really well. Actually.
He does seem to be holding it really well, and you don't hear the whisper down the lane of like, well, he blew up at that one person, or whatever tends to happen in circles. Sometimes it doesn't seem to be happening. So I'm really curious.
I'll be the uncle that you sometimes visit, and we can hang out, versus the dad who you're sort of putting up here.
That's what my I don't know if you remember the movie Braveheart at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you remember Uncle Argyle?
Yeah.
So that's what like my friends call me for their kids. I'm Uncle Argyle, the guy that shows up.
Oh yeah, cool.
With one eye that's blind, and I'm like, you have to look at your mother, Exactly. But part of what I offer, my thing is that sort of fierce but open masculine. And like you, I don't feel called to have a whole community. It's, for one, I have too many shadows. It's too fraught with danger for me personally, being completely honest.
Yeah.
And 2, I find the small work, like you're speaking to, it's just much more effective.
Yeah.
Like having 45 people on a sit, okay, like I understand the power of it and why I've done it, why I continue to do it, and why I would advocate that people should do it. I just don't think I'm the guy that's going to be leading that 45-person sit.
Yeah. It's different strokes for different folks.
Strokes.
You're a priest and I'm a priest, and I think you may be training to be a Roshi. I'm not at this time, but it's kind of like, I think the role of the priest is to be somewhere in the middle between a Roshi and the people, and really seeing what people need and alleviating suffering the best we can. This is my best, Mitra is my best stab so far. And I think it's got legs enough that, I'll be thinking of it as a 10-year sort of unfoldment. It'll continue to change and all that, but it feels right to me in my bones.
Yeah. It feels right to me too. So
as a priest, just as a priest, it's like sort of, things really started to come into alignment for me in this process of launching it. So it's just nice to be at home with something and not too needing it to be something huge or something. I think it's just like a gentle, soft place to be.
Agreed. So I want to invite anyone that's on the call, if you have any questions, feel free to call in, feel free to chat. We're kind of in the winding it down period here. So if you'd like to share something, please feel free to do so. Like I said, by the chat or by calling in. So maybe we get into a little bit, if people want to work with you, if they want to learn more about you, where would they go? What's the best way?
There's my website is practicemitra.com. That's the best way. I'm also on Substack as Moments of Mitra. You can just look me up.
Practicemitra.com. That's
Practicemitra.com is the website, and there's a lot of ways to get involved. I'm trying something new, which is like a free every couple of weeks, free circles for people who just want to, do a bit of the practice in a collective. It's a little different from the triad. It's not going to go as deep, obviously, but those are free, and
that's online, all like through Zoom.
This is all online. I don't work anywhere but online
right
now.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mitra Circles is one way you could just, move in a little step closer if you like. I also offer free consultations, 20 minutes or so if you want to work one-on-one. My ideal is to work with people just a short time and that they're sort of at the readiness to be moved into triads fairly quickly. That's my ideal.
Okay, so you're really, I would come in, we'd have a discovery call or whatever, and then you and I would work one-on-one, and then you'd say, why don't you join one of these triads that I have, and we'll work that way.
That's how it seems to work. People can come straight into triads, but we're going to have to talk and get to know each other, and sort of, part of the challenge right now is forming triads where the three people would sort of jive, and I have to make some, judgment calls about that and all that, because it's a 6-month commitment. So it's a bit of a deeper dive. It's sort of like we're in this for 6 to 9 months. Whereas one-on-one, is one-on-one, and that's one session at a time. And I'm very happy to be still working with people in that way.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I appreciate the community aspect. It's like, that's part of what men's work is about for me, like, being in a group of men and witnessed and all your sort of grandeur and shallowness. It's very cathartic when people get to know you better than you, and very humbling when they get to know you a little better than you know yourself. And, I think you and I, for a long time, we both of us practiced, really were solitary practitioners primarily, solo retreats, or even on a Zen retreat. On a Zen retreat, you're really practicing solo for practical purposes. You're not talking to anybody. You got Dokusan, but that's talking to the teacher, but it's very different, There's no peer-to-peer shit, that's for sure. And then, like you, I sit at home by myself, practice martial arts by myself, and I practice all of this sort of. And the practices that you and I have done have been so transformative in part because we're practicing together, and we're practicing in this sort of goalless way, apropos to all the experience that I spoke to that we have. But then we're just sitting and like, well, what's here?
Yeah.
What's to come up here? Exactly. Sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's laughter, sometimes it's parts, sometimes it's the deep clarity of non-dual awakening, right? It's all kinds of shit, right?
Yep. That's right. That's a Kalyana Mitra by definition, right there. That's what that's what the Buddha was talking about with true Sangha.
Yeah, we need each other more than ever. We need each other.
Yeah. I agree, and I think I overdid the individual path, and I'm sort of correcting myself with Mitra.
Yeah, me too. I'm still in the hard correction, trying to get back to community, but yeah. Well, awesome, man. Well, it's really good talking to you. It's funny. You were the first podcast that I did on this show. So That's
right. How long ago was that? Would that have been
4 years, maybe?
4 years ago?
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. I have to check.
You've been really dedicated to this podcast. You're doing two a month, generally?
Ish, but I'm getting back on the horse. Yeah, it's one of my own edges, right? It's one of the things I'm committed to, right? It's the reason I got the tattoo. It's like actually to put myself more out on the world with what I know, rather than just hiding in the shadows, which is what I would rather do. I'd much
Yeah.
rather be the kingmaker than the king, but like I'm being called at this point in my life to actually step to and offer my wisdom such as it is and my perspective such as it is, So that's
Yeah.
part of what this is all about.
Well, it's been really good to follow you. I watch, a good percentage of the things you're doing. You get really great guests. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Always feel free to send people my way.
yeah. Yeah.
So awesome. All right, brother. It was really good seeing you. And I'll have you on again in a few months and we'll see where it's all gone.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much. It was really good to be with you.
And thanks to Rob and Corey at Integral Life as always for making this happen.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.